So I just want to welcome everybody and thank everybody for coming today to the Studying as a Mature Student online session that we're running today. This is the first time that we will have run this session, so you might have to bear with us. But myself and my colleague this session, as well as Wendy Whitwell. So Paul, I don't know if you want to take over.
Yeah, so I wonder whether it's worth, we'll talk a little bit more later in the session around the Lifelong Learning Centre and mature students specifically at the University of Leeds. I just thought it might be useful for us in the first instance to formally introduce ourselves. My name's Paul Devlin, I'm the Student Support Officer in the Lifelong Learning Centre. So my job is to support both students studying on Lifelong Learning Centre programmes, the Lifelong Learning Centre being a school within the University of Leeds, but I'm also tasked with supporting mature students wherever they're studying in the university. So whether you're studying English or history or midwifery, I would act as a point of contact to support you, and that could be with things to do with coming into the university and getting started and navigating your way around the university. I can help students with student finance, as some people who were at our student finance talk will know. And I can certainly help students with disabilities and medical conditions and anyone with additional needs, right the way through to maybe some of those more crisis situations and supporting students through those big life events. So that's my role within the University of Leeds. Jenny?
Hi, yes, my name's Jenny Whitfield and I'm currently the Adult Learners Officer at the Lifelong Learning Centre. So I recently moved roles to Student Experience Officer, so I've got experience running different events and activities for students currently on programme, and now I've moved roles more to people sort of pre-entry before you start university, so I've got experience in both areas. And Wendy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Wendy. I'm a mature student and I'm in my final year doing my BA Professional Studies, but I'm also a learning champion and a student host, so I talk to a lot of prospective students.
Fantastic, thank you both. As we go along, Jenny and Wendy are going to be in the session. I'm going to do predominantly the majority of the talking, which is nothing new for me. I do like the sound of my own voice. But as we go, if you have any questions, post them in the chat room, either for Jenny as an employee of the University of Leeds or getting that student perspective from Wendy, and they can be answering things within the chat room. It's worth saying as well that one of the reasons that we've put this session on is that we absolutely acknowledge the differences between coming to university as a mature student to that of an 18-year-old. My experiences are that 18-year-olds quite often are on a rite of passage. It's expected of them that they go to university. They may be not quite sure what they want to study, but they know that once they've done their GCSEs or their A-levels, then when they're 18, they're going to leave home for the first time. They're going to move away with all of their friends and experience that university life. So while they come to university with many worries or fears or concerns, they're coming to university where it's expected that they will be doing that. For me, with a mature student, something big is happening there. There's a moment in your life where you've made a decision to come to university to completely disrupt your life, to maybe think completely afresh about your life and the direction that your life is going to take, maybe thinking around careers or money or earnings or a huge host of things, but regardless of your motivations, the decision that you're making is a huge one. It isn't just part of that rite of passage. You're making a huge commitment to come to university. So that can bring a few more worries and concerns and questions like, will I be able to do it and will I be able to cope? So we thought we would put this session on to maybe answer some of those hopes and worries and issues and maybe get you realizing that the things that you're worried about are perfectly normal and hopefully give an answer to some of those questions. So if I can move myself on to the next slide. So mainly the aims of this session, and I think that the bulk of the session will be about half an hour, We'll leave some space in afterwards for you to ask questions, and we can chat with Wendy and get that student perspective. But the main aims of the session are firstly to introduce the work of the Lifelong Learning Centre and how we support mature students. I'd like us to explore collectively some of the main reasons why a mature student, actually why you've decided to return to study. I think we come with some perceived kind of myths, really. We tell ourselves how we assume university is going to be, or how many mature students there might be, or am I academically ready? And we create all of these myths in our minds. And I just want to unpick some of those. So we'll do some stuff around myths and realities. I'd like us to spend some time looking at the similarities and the differences between mature students and standard age students. We can quite often see ourselves as mature students as being completely different to an 18-year-old student. I think in many ways we are, but I want to challenge that and look at the similarities and differences. Within that, looking at the main strengths that a mature student brings to the university, I think mature students can quite often be guilty of seeing themselves as being in deficit. I haven't been in education for a while, therefore I'm not going to be as good as the 18-year-olds, where actually it's quite the opposite. A mature student brings so much life experience to the table that they're infinitely ahead of all of the other 18-year-olds. So I wouldn't mind looking at that a little bit. And then just looking at other areas of support, other areas of information, other things that you might want to read just to ease some of the worries and concerns that you have. So hopefully that's why everyone decided to come to this session. So to start, please bear with me. So just to talk briefly about the Lifelong Learning Centre at the University of Leeds, because I do think that we are quite unique in the support that the university's decided to give to mature students. So the Lifelong Learning Centre at the University of Leeds serves two purposes. We are a teaching school and we teach our own programs. So just like a school of medicine or a school of English or the school of history within the university, the Lifelong Learning Centre delivers its own programs. The programs that we deliver, the degrees that we deliver, though, are specifically aimed at mature students. So, for example, we have a lot of part-time courses because we know that mature students may have work responsibilities or caring responsibilities. We do a lot of access level courses, foundation year programs, so we know that people like myself who maybe don't have a level 3 qualification or A levels may need to study for an additional year before they then go on to the degree. We do a lot of vocational courses in business, child and family studies, learning and teaching, evenings, weekends, full degrees, certificates in higher education, diplomas in higher education. All with the aim really that if a mature student ever came to us and said, I've always wanted to go to university, but we've removed that but, we've taken that away, and we've provided opportunities for a mature student, regardless of qualifications or previous educational experience, the opportunity to study. Wherever a mature student is studying at the university, and I spotted a question there asking, what do we mean by mature student? Let's not answer that now because maybe there's a quiz coming up. Oh, Wendy's, I hope people remember that quiz answer, 21 plus, because it is going to come up in the quiz. Wherever you're studying in the University of Leeds, the Lifelong Learning Centre also acts as a second home for mature students. So we provide physical spaces. We hope that mature students at University of Leeds find a real sense of space and place, but we know that it can be quite isolating, and sometimes you just want to sit around and chat with and eat your lunch with mature students that are your own age. So we provide physical spaces for you to be able to do that. We also provide bespoke support services for mature students. So we acknowledge that things like careers or academic skills or student finance or IT may be very different for someone in their 50s. So an example would be An 18-year-old coming to the university wanting to talk about careers may very well be talking about maybe getting a job for the first time, or writing a CV for the first time, or finding volunteering experience, whereas a mature student may well have been working for the last 30 years, so their needs around careers are completely different. Similarly with academic skills, if you've been out of education for 10, 20, 30 years, your needs around academic skills will be different. And student finance is utterly different if you have a mortgage and 3 children than if you're 18. So the Lifelong Learning Centre provides that support as well. We can provide that tailored support for mature students. And then we just like having fun. We run a range of events throughout the year, so certainly lots of things for students that have families and children. I think it's really important that that families come into the university so that they can see firsthand what the student will be doing, because you're going to need the support of your family. But we do trips. We've been to the opera. Listen, we sit around and have cake. We have professional development workshops, time management, resilience, confidence building. So all of those 3 things throughout the year will then complement your studies and make sure that you're supported as a mature student. I can see questions coming in. Bear with me. So just on to the next slide. Could I ask either Jenny or Daniel? Oh no, there I am. Thank you. So I'm going to go back on. Apologies. So just want to take a couple of moments, just in silence really. I'd like you to think about your own personal story. So I hark back to that original comment that I made at the beginning around it being very different for a mature student. You've obviously made a big decision that coming to university is maybe something that you would like to do. It isn't expected of you. It's a huge decision that you're making. So I'd like you to sit just for about 60 seconds and answer why. So the first 2 questions there were, what are you thinking about studying? I'm guessing people have an idea. It doesn't have to be specific. You don't have to say, well, I want to become a dentist, but you might know that you want to work in healthcare. Why that subject? Why that area? What is it particularly about that thing that has made you decide to potentially come to university? But the most important question that I want you to reflect on is, why now? What's been the specific moment right now that has made you want to think about going to university? And I won't accept an answer along the lines of, well, I've always wanted to go to university. I really want to unpick right now what has been the big decision. So if you can just take a couple of minutes, I'll give you about a minute, and then we'll feed that back as a group on the next slide. Like I say, if anyone has any questions as we go, feel free to add them into the chat, and my colleague Jenny, the wonderful student Wendy, are around to answer those, as they have been. So you'll see that I've changed the slide there, and along the top of the screencast you should see some icons, and one of them is a T for a text box. If you click onto the T, you should then be able to type onto that slide and put your answers. The second question is the most important for me, but I would be keen to hear your answers on the first. So if anyone's feeling brave and technologically capable, if you see the T along the top, we can see there, well, straight away. So we've got adult nursing, professional studies, child and family studies. Already we're seeing that kind of vocational aspect that I talked about at the beginning, that shines with mature students. Not all. 2 adult nurses, fantastic. God bless the NHS. And certainly a bit of narrative in the second one as well. So like that, realised after talking to other professionals I'm not too old. Haley, if you just want to type your answer into the chat room. Haley, you're saying that your phone's glitching and won't bring up your type. Oh, well, that's fine. Don't worry too much about not being able to type into this. I suspect that some of your answers are going to chime with others. So education's in there, child nursing in there, midwifery. Well, we're going to be in safe hands health-wise with this group. So I like that, professional studies, but I'm interested in counselling, but actually I'm not sure yet. Psychology. So some of the reasons there, it would help me improve my effectiveness at work. Self-development, started getting a bit cluttered there. Jenny, are we able to move that around? Thank you. So someone's been diagnosed as dyslexic, as is their 9-year-old daughter, and you'd like to prove to the world that doesn't kind of define you. Interestingly, so in my role, I support students with dyslexia, and I think there's an assumption made that students with dyslexia are somehow of lower intelligence. And actually, when you read the dyslexia diagnosis, what you tend to find is that students with dyslexia are significantly higher intelligence. They just need to work a little bit differently. But yeah, increased intelligence. So we don't think you're slow. In fact, we think you're superb. As a lone parent, I don't do anything at night, so I might as well study, learn more about healthcare. I like the idea of working with those that need my help. Fine. Child and family studies. I've worked with children for over 8 years and would like to be able to support parents out of a nursery or school. I want to run my own business. I can't see the end of that writing. I have a 10-year. If anyone can move that for me, because I can't. I have a 10-year plan. I can see that. Achieve my potential. If not now, when? Any more for any more before I move on? Fine. I'm going to move on. There's another comment from Nikki there who's saying in the separate chat that she wants to study learning and teaching for those with special educational needs to make a difference, including supporting her own children and in a current job role. Her daughter was settled in school now, so it's the first opportunity to do something for me in many years. Fantastic, which chimes then. If I move on to my next slide. Bear with me. So I think, and I think a lot of you chimed with this, or if you didn't, I think when we read it out now, I think these are the 4 most typical reasons for a mature student coming back to education. So the first one about careers. You're doing a job that you absolutely hate and you're thinking to yourself, wow, do I want to be doing this for the rest of my life? No. I'm going to go to university and retrain and do something completely different because I just feel stuck. We hear that so often. The second one about careers is slightly different. Some people are doing a job that they quite like, but they don't feel they can't get any further. So they have to then go to university to get a qualification to develop, or they're seeing other colleagues who are developing and growing, but they just can't get that promotion. They can't be doing the thing that they want to be doing. Children, correct up on that last slide. We hear so often, firstly, I'm a parent. My children now are at an age where I can do something for myself. And actually, I want to be a role model for my children. I want my children, when they're 18, to know that university can be something for them. And I've changed this last one from the word divorce to the major life event. But those major things that happen in life, blimey, we're living through one now with this whole coronavirus thing. But those moments like divorce, bereavement, redundancy, health issues, just those moments that really make you take stock of things and stop and think, wow, I need to be really kind of reflecting on my life and what I want to do. Does that chime with people? Can people stick like a yes or a no in the text box in the chat room just to let me know whether those tend to chime or if I'm off track? It is, yeah, isn't it? I'm getting yeses there, and it is. I mean, you all have those very different reasons for wanting to study, and different stories, but largely speaking, it's going to be one or more of them. And Russell, you were saying it's 3 out of 4 of them for me. The reason I like doing that exercise is making you realise that you're not alone. I think as a mature student, you can quite often think to yourself, well, no one else is doing this, or no one else is feeling these things, or no one's making these big decisions. But actually they are, and what we can see in the chat room is everyone agrees with 1 or 4 of those, so we're all in that same boat. You're certainly not alone as a mature student. I'm just going to move on to the next one. And the reason, yeah, most of those apply. I should get a job as like some kind of mind reader, Darren Brown type person who can just guess why people come to university. Let's start and let's do a little quiz. There is no prizes for this quiz. And I hope you are paying attention at the beginning because we have already given the answer. So question number 1, there's no fastest finger first either. You just get the glory of answering these questions. Leela, straight in. What age is the university definition of a mature undergraduate? Leela reckons 21. Annika, 25. 21 plus. Anyone think anything different? Faisal, you think 25 as well? Tozen, 21 plus. Well done. Russell, straight in with a 30 plus. Tim's a bit like me. He's maybe reflecting back on himself as 21, and I would have called myself anything but mature at the age of 21. But unfortunately, the university definition of a mature student is indeed 21. What we tend to find, certainly within the University of Leeds, is that while the university's definition of a mature undergraduate is 21, we tend to find that the majority of mature students in our university that are mature would be in their 30s, 40s, 50s. We've got a good chunk of students in their 60s who've retired, who then want to study the thing that they've always wanted to study but couldn't because they were at work. And then we have some students older as well. So our oldest student this year is 76. So we've got everything in between. But pat on the back there if you answered correctly, 21. So how many undergraduates do we have at the University of Leeds? How many mature undergraduates are at the University of Leeds? Total. So you're quite thinking, well, there'll be no one else like me. I want something a bit more specific, Leela, than loads. That's a good answer. Tim, question mark, 500. I'll give you a little bit of a clue. So Faisal, you're saying 100. We have 10,000 students at University of Leeds, undergraduate students. So we have 10,000 students. So Elizabeth, you're saying about half of those would be mature students. Leanne, 5,000. Anika, 2,000 plus. About 3,500. About 3,500. It's a third of our students would be mature students. So typically over the age of 21. But as I say, usually kind of 30, 40, 50. I ask some, and Faisal, you're saying there, wow. I do ask that question at open days, and a lot of mature students think that they're the only ones, that there'll only be maybe 10, 20, 50, 100 other mature students. And they're absolutely amazed when they realise that there's going to be 3,500 other people. Now, when you come to Freshers Week or Open Days, you are going to feel like the oldest person in the world because there's going to be a lot of 18-year-olds. I just want you to remember that fact, that you're not alone and there's 3,500 people. True or false? There has been an increase in mature students over the last 10 years. Anika's amazed by the fact that there's 3,500 mature students. Good. If that's the only thing that you get from this session, well, then I'm glad. So there has been an increase in mature students over the last 10 years. Now, I wished I had my answer sheet in front of me because I can't remember the answer to this question. Everyone so far is answering true, and I think it is absolutely true. I think there has been a decline in part-time students. And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot of reasons why over the last 10 years the numbers of students studying part-time has declined, but actually at the same time there has been generally an increase in mature students coming to university. So true. Next question, true or false? There are more part-time mature students at Leeds than full-time. True or false? Leanne straight in with false. Faisal, true. Ooh, it's like a real little quiz night, this, isn't it? So generally speaking, people are saying false there, and I think you're right. So at University of Leeds, we have about 600 part-time students. The one thing that I like about the University of Leeds and its part-time provision is that we have tailor-made part-time courses to fit around work and childcare. So our part-time courses may just be one evening a week or one afternoon a week, whereas I know a lot of universities potentially will have things running throughout the week but still call them part-time. So yeah, about 600 in comparison to the 3,500 mature students that we have. Do most mature students already have a degree? So do they come back to university to get a second degree? So true or false? Most mature students already have a degree. Mixed bag on the answers here. A lot of people are saying there's one or two trues, but most people are saying false. I think you're absolutely right. Some do. I think we have a core. We have a core of mature students who maybe when they were 18 felt pressured into going to university, or maybe studied at a university just to be with their friends, or potentially thought that they were going to study a specific course in English, and that was what they were going to do with the rest of their lives, and then 20 years later realised that they'd want to come back to university to study something completely different. But generally speaking, a mature student wouldn't have a degree already. A lot of the mature students that we're working with at University of Leeds would be like me, where I mean, my maximum qualification, I think, is GCSE and only just. And even then, we have some mature students who don't have GCSEs but are still able to come to university. So yeah, most mature students don't already have a degree. Mary, did you have a question? If so, do you want to type it into the chat box, and then one of my colleagues will get back to you. The next question there, mature students only study vocational subjects. True or false? Daniel's pinning his badge to this one, so he's saying it's so false. Yes and no. I think a mature student can study anything they want at university, and that's a key thing. They're not limited at all by vocational courses. So we have students studying in every area across the university. Actually, if you looked at the statistics, however, you would find that most mature students do only study vocational subjects. Because their choices are different. It isn't about leisure learning necessarily. A lot of it, as we go back to those previous slides, is around careers and career development. So a mature student can study anything, but actually they do probably only study vocational subjects. And the last one, I put this question in because I suppose that there isn't a direct correlation between disabilities and medical conditions in mature students. I just wonder, what do people think is the percentage of mature students at our university that would have a disability or a long-term medical condition or mental health condition or things like dyslexia? Do we want to put a number on that? About 15%. 5 or less than 5%. Leela and Annika going slightly higher, 20%, 40%. Tim straight in their 50s, like saying almost half. So generally speaking, across the university, across the entire student population, most universities would expect to have about 10% of students that would have a disability or long-term medical condition. When we look at the statistics for mature students, we would find that number to be closer to about 20, 22%. So you're almost twice as likely to come to university as a mature student and have a health condition. I suppose that kind of chimes with just having lived a life and having just having that. I'm 41 and my knees are starting to get sore now, and that's just the start of it. I think the reason that I put that application in, the reason that I put that question in, was just to flag that. Firstly, that there's support for students, for all students of any age with disabilities or medical conditions or mental health conditions, but also to flag again that it isn't a barrier. So a lot of students saying, I'd love to come to university, but I have a disability. It shouldn't be a but. You certainly wouldn't be alone there as well. Fine. Well, you're all winners on that quiz. So let's move on to the next slide. Just taking a bit of time. Just a similar task to the one that we did when we were typing in using that T along the top. I wanted just to spend a few moments having a think about both the similarities and differences between a mature student and a standard age student. I don't want to do the talking here, I want you to do the typing. What do you think are some of the similarities and differences? So just using that T along the top again to type. So one of them, yeah. So some of the similarities there, just they both have a passion to learn or a desire to learn. They want money, better pay. If you go to university, you are statistically more likely to get a better paid job. Ambition, absolutely. Someone who's 18 has got like the same ambition as someone in their 30s, 40s, 50s, absolutely. Some of the differences there, and that's coming up, are the age. There is an undeniable difference in age. Life experience. So you bring to the table maybe work experience, budgeting, raising children, all of the kind of career stuff, communication skills. I reflect back on the communication skills when I'm 18, and I just want to hang my head in shame, really. Whereas now I feel more likely to be able to ask for things and communicate better. So financially, you may be in a better financial standing than you were when you were 18. Equally, actually, you might be in a worse financial standing if you've got a lot of other commitments. You may be more mature and focused. I see the words "daddy," and I'm guessing that means dedication. Someone's trying to type dedication in there. You're more dedicated. It means a little bit more. Similarly, on the left-hand side, you've got passion, you've got zeal, regardless of your age. Some of the differences there in nightlife. So I'm guessing you're thinking there that a lot of, well, I mean, actually a lot of 18-year-old students now, there's been a real kind of shift in alcohol use around with 18-year-olds, and what I find as a student support officer now is the number of 18-year-old students that aren't drinking and doing that classic kind of student nightlife lifestyle is really surprising. And I think we make assumptions as mature students about what 18-year-olds at university will be like, and they're really going to challenge your expectations there. The very kind of clever set of people. dividing time with other commitments, different sets of responsibilities, life experiences, absolutely. So an 18-year-old student, largely speaking, can just be a student all of the time, from morning through till night, whereas you're going to have to be juggling potentially work, family, caring responsibilities, marriages, mortgages, and the like. So there's complete set of differences there. More responsibilities is coming in again. These are really nice. Yeah, the similarities. I like that similarity as well. That just came up there, wanting to be part of the university community. And I think that that's really important, because that's exactly what we are. We're both a geographical community. So the University of Leeds in particular is a very large campus. So our total population is about 42,500 people. Our population is half the size of Scarborough, and we have people from 180 countries. Jenny, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, just saying about the university community, it amazes me every day how the variety that there is on campus, the global community, and all the things that there are to offer on there. It's a town in its own right, really, so it's a really exciting place to be. That's it.
Fine. Just to flag up, the main thing that I wanted to discuss there in the differences section was another assumption that mature students make, in that they're not going to be able to manage because they have so many other responsibilities and other commitments. Particularly we get this with student parents, but it doesn't have to be parents. I think they make the assumption, or you're possibly making the assumption, that you're not going to be able to manage. And what we find is it's quite the opposite. I think all of those other rich life skills that you have enable you to be able to manage. So for example, there's nothing this university can teach a student parent around time management. You're already managing your time perfectly, and there's nothing we can teach you. And exactly the same if you've worked, or you've worked in quite stressful environments, having to juggle or multitask, you're bringing those skills to the table. In fact, if you look at the statistics, so statistically, if you are a student parent, if you come into the university and have children, you're academically going to outperform those students that don't. And it's for those reasons, because there isn't a choice anymore. You're not leaving it a chance. You have to be very structured and disciplined in your time. So all of those differences that we can see that are coming in around being a mature student, just because you're different doesn't mean you're in deficit. And actually, it's quite the opposite. Those life skills are really bringing something to the table. I'm going to move on, and I know we are recording this, so we're not losing any of this these rich insights, and there's been some great things that have been coming in there. Just going to move on to the next slide. Hopefully. Bear with me. And I thought it would be a nice bit of time here, because I can talk about studying as a mature student from my perspective as a staff member, having listened to hundreds of mature students. But equally, we thought it might be really nice for you to hear from a current mature student as well, who can give her insight. So Wendy, I don't know if you're still there, or whether you're able just to chip in now and give your story about coming to the university and how you found it, and any hints or tips or things like that.
Hi, Paul. Yes, thank you. So I'm Wendy. 5 years ago, I was still working for the council as a volunteer manager with 200 volunteers underneath me. And I received through the post a leaflet about something called Jumpstart. I don't know if any of you have seen this or been on the Jumpstart course. And it was sort of 10 weeks and learn a different subject each week. Now, when I was growing up, I lived most of my life in Africa, and I didn't have the opportunity to go to university. So, of course, I started working at 17, and put those sort of things out of my mind. And when this came along, I thought, oh, I'd like to try that, because you know, there's no saying that I need to go to university. After I've done all this, I'll go and see what it's like. I'm very addicted to learning. I like learning new stuff. So I thought this was for me. So I applied, and I was called in for an interview. And basically, it was found that because I've been working for so long and I had a lot of life experience, that Jumpstart probably wasn't where I should be starting. And instead, I was offered a place, the last place as it was, on a module called Preparation for Higher Education. So this is not a degree as such. It basically is what it says on the tin. So it's preparing you for higher education. And I thought, oh, all right, well, let's try this out. It was night schools, so twice a week, and one Saturday a month, which fit in with me working. And I was very apprehensive about starting. I only had two weeks basically to get myself ready to start. And I thought, oh God, I'm going to come and I'm going to be the granny of the group. You know, am I going to really have time to do this? And am I clever enough to even do these sort of things? And this is a posh school. This is for, you know, people with money. Am I, you know, is this going to be too posh for me? And when I came that first night, and I realized that all my fears were totally unfounded. I mean, the age ranges were from 21 up until I think we had somebody in our class who was 72. So I was by no means the granny of the group. And I was captivated from the very first lesson. It just prepared me for everything that followed for my degree. So from learning how to use the library, which sounds a bit funny, but you know, when I've been out of education for sort of 40 years like I had, things like using a library like that, just you'd forgotten about those things. Learning how to write essays. Again, I couldn't remember how to write an essay. I mean, I got out of the habit of writing. You know, everything was done by email or whatever you typed in your computer. You didn't sort of formulate properly. And from there, I've just grown from strength to strength. I've just learned so much. Firstly on the PhD, but then I got onto the professional studies course, which is a multidisciplinary module, and you just learn so. I always tell everybody, anything with an ology on the end, that's what professional studies you know, covers. And through this course, I've been able to dip my toe in the water of other modules around the school called discovery modules, which has been absolutely and utterly amazing. But I think a lot of my comfort, or being comfortable at you know, what's classed as a red brick university, is the fact that we have the Lifelong Learning Centre. I always tell everybody that's my second home. You walk in there, everybody knows you. If you need help and support, it's there from the staff, it's there from your peers. And if somebody doesn't know, they'll find somebody who does know. And it was just like, I knew that this is the place I wanted to be. And I'm actually getting a bit panicky about the fact that I'm finishing at the end of May. And I'm wondering, what am I going to do? Because I didn't come to university looking for a new career. I'd been given the opportunity and I just took it with both hands. And I just loved every minute of it. Yes, I won't lie and say that it's easy. It's not. You have to learn to manage your time, fit it around everything else. But if you're passionate enough, it's something that you'll do because you're there, because you want to be. Not like a lot of the traditional age students. A lot of them are there because mom and dad, not a lot of them, but some of them are there because mom and dad think that it's a good thing, a good place for them to be. But as a mature student, you're there because you want to be, because you want to change some aspect of your life, or you just want to enhance your knowledge and your learning. And also, impart some of your own experiences and knowledge to other people to help them to grow. And it certainly has helped me grow. And I'm a totally different person to the one that started 4 years ago. And I'm very pleased with that.
Excellent. Thank you, Wendy. And I've got a specific question for you. And just knowing or having spoken to so many students who are thinking about coming into university, the thing that I hear time and time again is, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. I don't think I'm academically capable. And when I speak to students coming into university, I give the analogy of a swimming pool. So I talk very often that when someone learns to swim, we don't just push them off the deep end and expect them to be able to do it. You put the armbands and the ring bands around them, and you pop them in the baby pool in the shallow end, and you teach them how to do it, and you're never left unattended, and eventually you'll get deeper and deeper and being able to swim further and further. And I think if people think around university in those same terms, where it can feel really daunting and overwhelming, if you think about university as having to swim the English Channel, but if you start thinking about university as being that introduction and that gradual kind of move towards being able to learn, it's always going to be difficult. I think even when you learn to swim that very first day, you feel as if you're going to drown and you feel as if you're flapping all over, but if you put your feet down, you'll be fine. You can just stand up. And I think university is the same. What was your experiences of that? Did you think that you would struggle? And then how did you find it when you came in?
Yeah, I mean, I did think I was going to struggle. And a lot of that was around the fact that I didn't know that mature students could go to university. So that for me was getting rid of my own insecurity around that. And then with the I was lucky with the PHE in that it gave you the skills that you needed to be able to manage. So you learned about time management. You learned so many different skills about how that you're not just going to sit there and you're just going to sit and write a 2,000-word essay in an evening. So it taught you how to plan things out, where to find stuff out, and how to go from there. And that came about with support from tutors, from you guys in Lifelong Learning Centre, support from everybody else in your class. And I think knowing that you were all in the same pool, using your analogy together, and that if you held hands that you could swim the English Channel. And by the end of it, I certainly felt that we had done that, and that we were so well prepared to go on for the next step.
And there was some questions in the chat there. We're talking around PHE, which you did reference earlier. So that's our preparation for higher education course. It's basically just a one-year part-time access course specifically for mature students, which then enables people to come to university for 1 year, maybe who don't already have the right qualifications, like myself, and then be able to progress onto the degree programme of their choice. Wendy, thank you for that. I've just got one eye on the clock, and what I did want to do, and people don't need to worry too much about writing things down on this next slide, if it will come up with me, because we are going to send these out via email as well. So you can see that we've put some information in. Jenny, I don't know if you want to talk around these first three here, so these future events that might be coming up, so things like the Adult Learner Summer School, Jump Start, Taster Days, maybe a little bit about the pre-entry guidance service as well.
Hi, yeah, so obviously with this new way of working, we're still sort of in the planning stage for a lot of things, but there are online sessions going up on the landing page all the time, which I will share shortly in the chat. So we will have other subject specific online events coming up. So there'll be different subjects that we study, and also different. We might run this session again if it's interested you. Also finance sessions and things like that. We do run a summer school. Obviously this year we probably will have to postpone it or cancel it for this year, but that is something to look out for future years. And the Jumpstart course that Wendy referred to, which is a 10-week programme that we run normally in January and in October, so that gives you a taste of different subjects that we offer, and again that landing page is there, but I will put it in the chat towards the end of the session. We also have a pre-entry guidance service, so this is a one-to-one service. It's completely impartial, so they will not tell you directly to come to the University of Leeds. They will give you suggestions for what is best for you, so suggest maybe other courses at other institutions, and also talk about entry qualifications and things that you need to access higher education. They can also help with the application process as well. So they're really good people to contact. So the information there is on that link, but again they'll be sending a follow-up email around with this information in. So Paul, I don't know if you want to just...
Thank you. Yeah, so then the next thing on that list, I've popped a link to a mature student handbook. So every year when students come to University of Leeds, we produce a nice little guide for them. So it won't be necessarily relevant to you now because you're not students yet, I'm assuming. But what it will do will give you an idea of the support that's available to you once you become a student, certainly here at University of Leeds. There's a link to a Facebook group if people are on Facebook. Then there's the Returning to Study Facebook page where there's current students. I think Wendy's on there. I think there's others as well. So if you had questions or wanted to know more about returning to study, that's a great place to start. I think Wendy's been the best part of this session, really, and I always think it's best to be able to hear from the students themselves, the people that have done what you're thinking of doing. There's more case studies. When Wendy may be on there, I know that there's a whole host of other personal stories of mature students, and I'd really encourage you just to go over to the YouTube channel and have a look at those stories. And then an open invitation really for you just to contact us if you have any questions, if there's anything you need more information about, if there's things that you didn't maybe feel comfortable asking in this public setting, by all means drop us an email and we can give you a little bit more information. I think for now though, does anyone have any final questions? Is there anything where people were wanting information about a specific thing, or there's anything that I haven't answered, or something that you'd like to ask of Wendy finally? So one of the questions there was, well, when is the deadline to apply for an access course? So we need to be clear around the terminology here. So an access course typically would be something offered by a local college, so an access to higher education diploma, and they potentially will recruit right the way through to September. Similarly, Anne-Marie, you're asking, is it too late to apply for September? What I would be saying to anyone considering starting university this September is the sooner you make an application, the more likely it is that you may be accepted. So courses get full. Courses are very popular, so you might find a course that you want to apply for now and it's full because people have been applying since last September. So the answer to Leanne and Anne-Marie, when is the deadline? Think less around when the deadline is and think more around applying now. Faisal, is the accommodation separate from mature students? Strictly speaking, no. What we tend to find is that when students want to live in university-owned accommodation, they are asked a question on their application, do you have any specific requirements? And we find that mature students may ask for family accommodation or quiet accommodation, or to be around other mature students. So the university will do its best to then group those people together, but there isn't specific university-owned accommodation for mature students, although we may be able to help people apply for accommodation elsewhere. Leanne's asking, well, what is the website to apply? So all full-time courses, students apply through a website called UCAS, which is UCAS, UCAS. If you just Google UCAS, that will be the central portal for you to be able to apply to university. However, I will be encouraging you to make sure that you meet the entry criteria for the course that you want to apply for, and that information should be on the website of each university. Daniel's mentioning there, I don't think there's any apologies there around when we're using the word access, because I think it is confusing, because a foundation year course also enables students access into a university. So a lot of people call them access programs. So yes, absolutely, the University of Leeds also, as well as having access to higher education diplomas that can be done in local colleges, we have foundation year programs, which would be the equivalent of an access course. So do send us an email and have a conversation with us about that, if you're thinking around access courses or foundation courses. And Marie, do you have to have finance in place first before applying? I would encourage anyone to apply for the finance now. You're not contractually obliged. It's better to apply now for your finance and get it in place, regardless of whether you know you're going to come to university or which course, or apply early. And we do have a separate student finance session coming up. I think April we'll send an email out.
21st of April.
April the 21st. So we can send more information out about that with these slides. Do all universities have lifelong learning centres? Unfortunately not. Some of them have great support for mature students. Some have specific centres like the Lifelong Learning Centre. So I'd be encouraging any of you to contact the universities you're thinking to apply to and asking them, well, how do they support mature students? Daniel is saying goodbye. Mohammed, we have a separate session for finance, so we'd encourage you to come along to that. From a first year course done at college, can I change to apply to Leeds for the foundation year? Potentially. Let's have a conversation, Elizabeth. Send us an email with your details. Anne-Marie's just not sure kind of what course. What if you don't know? I've mentioned the guidance service on a previous slide. So the guidance service can help people think about what they want to do, what they might want to do, and take things from there. I'm very conscious of time, so I'm going to suggest that we end the session there, but certainly thank you everyone for coming.
Yes, thank you very much.
Jenny.
Thank you very much everybody for attending the session today.